So welcome folks to 20-minute tech break. My name is Valerie Nguyen, and I'm the marketing specialist at Eagle Dream Technologies. So moving forward, we'll be here every other Friday at 12:30 p.m. taking on a new topic each week. So if you're a newcomer, this is how it's going to go today. So we have 20 minutes, 3 questions, and 2 experts. So we'll be covering 3 high-level points, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So this week we'll be discussing pathways to running Windows on AWS with Amazon Web Services Glenn Morris and Eagle Dream's Justin Guse. So with that being said, we hope you gained some new information today. And Justin, I'm going to hand it off to you to talk about your experience and what you do here at Eagle Dream.
Sure, thanks, Val. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining today. We've got some good information around moving your workloads, your Microsoft workloads to AWS. My name is Justin Guse. I'm a principal cloud solution architect here at Eagle Dream Technologies. And my role here at Eagle Dream really is helping customers get to the cloud. My focus is around Windows and Microsoft workloads in particular. I also have a very strong infrastructure background, and I also do a lot on the DevOps side of things too. So anything that's related to a migration, whether a customer is already familiar with the cloud or they're looking to completely start fresh on the cloud, I'm usually there at the very beginning of the process, all the way through the implementation stage. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Glenn.
So everybody, I'm Glenn Morris. I'm a Windows Partner Development Specialist at AWS. And as part of my job, I get to work very closely with Eagle Dream in terms of helping them develop their Windows on AWS practice and do fun things like this, where we get to talk to folks about how we work together as a team and how we can help our customers jointly and with their migrations to AWS. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your introduction, and we can just get right into it.
So, as I was mentioning, like nearly all companies rely on Windows and SQL Server in their business, and or just about all are exploring ways to migrate those workloads to the cloud. But it can be daunting. There's several different migration paths that can be taken and decisions that need to be made along the way. And we're going to be talking about some of those migration pathways today. But there's no easier way to move those workloads to the cloud than with AWS. We offer a great value proposition for running Microsoft workloads on AWS, and just going to touch on these briefly. We offer greater reliability. We have more regions with multiple availability zones than any other cloud provider in the market, and that helps us to achieve best-in-class downtime. We monitor all cloud providers on a regular basis for downtime, and AWS consistently achieves the lowest margins or the lowest downtime hours across all of them. And we offer better performance. We've done plenty of independent studies using a variety of different tools, and consistently AWS comes out on top from a price performance standpoint. And of course, security is paramount to anybody's cloud migration. And AWS offers 210 security, compliance, and governance certifications, as well as 89 security standards and compliance certifications. But when it comes to this too, we pride ourselves in offering customers the lowest TCO in the industry. And we accomplish that in a number of different ways. We offer more Windows Server a comprehensive family of EC2 instances that allow you to be very agile in terms of how you configure your instances and optimize those instances to achieve cost savings. We've lowered prices in the past 4 years 85 times, and just recently we announced that we've dropped the average pricing of Amazon RDS for SQL Enterprise Edition by 25%. And experience matters at the end of the day. We've been doing this for 11 plus years now, longer than any of our competitors have offered Windows in the cloud services. You can count on us. We've done this with thousands of customers, and we're here and ready and able to help you as well. So let's talk a little bit about the three pathways. So,
and one thing I did want to chime in on there too, I think is really interesting is how, you would think typically, well, my Microsoft workloads will run much better in Azure, but in reality, AWS beats Azure in performance metrics all day long. It's interesting. You wouldn't expect that, but we see it a lot of times with our customers that their Windows workloads run great, and that's not limited to just EC2 instances or just servers running on AWS. There's a whole bunch of other platforms and services available outside of just running servers. So things like AWS workspaces, so virtual desktop infrastructure for having essentially a Windows 10 desktop experience. Amazon FSx, which is the platform service for hosted file sharing.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the first migration path. So there's three, right? We have there's a lift and shift, which we consider, it can be called rehost, it can be called lift and shift. Mostly today it's called lift and shift. And this would be considered to be probably the simplest of all migration paths. It's essentially picking up the app and dropping it into the cloud as is. It's the simplest and fastest. You get benefits such as performance, security, some cost savings benefits associated with the cloud, and it's fast and reliable. And we offer many different tools that make it very automated, very quick, and simple, if you will. There are some things to take into consideration with lift and shift as well. And while it's simplest and fastest, you don't necessarily gain all the advantages of the extra flexibility and scalability that a cloud environment can offer you. So again, simple, fastest, many tools like Cloud Endure and our AWS server migration service available at no cost to help with your migration if a lift and shift is the best fit for your particular scenario. So the second would be replatforming, right? And Justin and Eagle Dream have done this, a number of times, many times with customers, and that's essentially very similar to lift and shift, but it does involve some app modification that helps you take advantage of cloud functionality, right? It's the advantages of it. It's cost efficient. You can start small and scale it up as your business plan and strategy dictates. And most importantly, it helps you start taking advantage of the native functionality within the cloud. Things like auto scaling and managed storage and data processing services. So just some things to consider when you're replatforming is that the work scope can grow, right? And managing that scope to within your business strategy and your cloud migration strategy is very important. There's just been instances where the work scope creeps and it's like, okay, well, if we're doing it for this one, let's do it for this one, and let's do it for this one. So it's kind of important to stay within scope and then manage that out as you have successes with migrating your first 2-3 applications. So again, just kind of stay away from dramatic change there, and I think you'll be in good shape. So Justin, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about refactoring and modernization?
Sure, and sorry about the technical difficulties there. Having some connectivity issues, but I'm dialed in now, so we should be good. So Glenn had touched on the first couple there, lift and shift and replatform. Some of the benefits and considerations around those two, but if you're looking to maybe refactor, re-architect your applications or your Microsoft applications, there's a variety of ways to do that. So AWS has a whole slew of different services, especially around serverless. We're seeing a lot of that today. So using functional technologies like AWS Lambda, for example, taking advantage of newer technologies like .NET Core too. You know, there's plenty of different ways that you can go about if you still want to keep the Microsoft stack on AWS, but also, you know, we also see a lot of customers that tend to go more of an open source route. So developing and modernizing and using other services like Aurora or, you know, other open source development technologies like Python for their backends. So there's a lot of different ways you can go and a lot of incentives for modernizing your applications on AWS. I don't know if Glenn touched on it at all, but you know, if you're looking for something along the line of containers, so AWS's ECS service, particularly Fargate, where everything is managed for you for the whole orchestration stack as it relates to containers, there is a new type of migration path called app to container, which I think is actually really cool. You can essentially package up your on-premises applications, your .NET applications, you know, even other Java type applications, package them up and containerize them with just a few simple steps, and then run those on ECS Fargate. So again, lots of different options if you're looking to modernize your applications and run them on AWS with plenty of tools at your disposal.
No, I think that covers the three pathways. But so I'm sure you're maybe asking yourself, you know, how do I get started on some of this, right? And I think the biggest thing that you can do is, you know, you need to develop a cloud migration strategy. I'm not saying anything that isn't obvious, but as part of that, you really need, you know, recognize that your use case scenarios could very much dictate that you use different pathways. You may use a refactor for a portion, but you may, you know, be looking at replatforming or rehosting other parts of the business. And so it really starts with kind of knowing your baseline, right? So what do you have deployed? What is the actual utilization going on within your environment? And that can help you make the decisions as to, you know, identifying which workloads to move first and then the best pathway for each of those workloads, right? Because again, it could be an app that you can just pick up, lift and shift into the cloud, but there may be others where they, you know, a replatform would be the best strategy. So what I suggest is that we, AWS and Eagle Dream, offer a service called an optimization and licensing assessment. And what that enables you to do is to really get a much better sense of A, what's deployed within your environment, and B, what does the actual utilization look like? And then also C is, you know, you kind of need to know what the cost optimization or what the costs are going to be for migrating to the cloud and what that could look like in an optimized format once it's migrated. So you can learn more about optimization licensing assessments, or what we like, you know, we call OLA. Again, it's a free offering. Eagle Dream and AWS together very closely on that. It's been very helpful advising around what their migration pathways would look like.
And I think
and
one
Justin,
thing
I mean, we just recently completed one with the customer that was really good success coming out of it.
Yeah, and I think one thing worth adding too is with those assessments and leveraging those tools to understand, you know, what you have running today and how you can move it to the cloud. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go the lift and shift route. Some of those tools actually provide some really interesting capabilities around helping you optimize those workloads. So maybe you've got a bunch of different virtual machines that you're running on VMware today. So taking those applications or taking those servers and pivoting them to something like a platform service. So you know, if you were to take, for example, you know, maybe a database or something like that, and pivot that to a platform service, you know, what would that look like? What would the cost savings be? Not just from a month-to-month cost of the service itself, but you know, an administrative cost savings to help free up IT staff to be able to not have to focus on is the server running? Is it highly available, or do I have to worry about the disks in the server and things like that? With a platform service, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Amazon handles all of the underlying infrastructure and maintenance of that, and you can focus on the applications that run on top.
Yeah, great points.
Oh, no, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think we'd like to, save some time here for questions as well.
All right, perfect. Yes, so thank you so much for that high-level discussion. We're now going to open it up to Q&A. So to the attendees, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you and call on you, or feel free to type your question in the chat box.
Yeah, I'd love to answer Jennifer's question, if I may, in terms of talking more about how to navigate licensing and EAs.
Of course, take it away.
All right, so Jennifer, it's obviously a great question, and it's always first in front of or top of mind for customers as they're considering this. But that's one of the reasons why I was calling out the OLA, right? Because part of that is, it's optimization, but it's a licensing assessment as well. So what we often find there is that customers, look at the output from that OLA and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so over provisioned on my Microsoft SQL Server licenses, for example, right? Where the utilization of those servers is so light that that when you compare it to that running in an elastic cloud environment and the ability to scale up and down, with that, the cost savings can be pretty dramatic. So, and in terms of the EA, right, and this is a much deeper conversation that we would get into, but the customers do have the ability to bring their Microsoft licenses or BYOL, those licenses, onto AWS, and that requires just a little bit of analysis to see what they have, and if they have software assurance rights that go along with that. So we can certainly dive deeper into that. But my recommendation, again, is kind of like get a handle on what's in the environment and understand what it looks like from a licensing standpoint.
So our next question is from Courtney. Can you elaborate on lift and shift as a pathway?
Sure. It's, again, essentially involves, it's the simplest and fastest migration pathway and requires no code changes to the existing application. It's essentially a pickup and then move it onto an appropriately sized cloud instance without any code modification whatsoever. So what you do get from that is some cost savings, performance improvements, as well as reduction of the overhead and the costs associated with running that on-prem.
And going into that, we have a question from Adam. So when conducting an OLA, how can you ensure your projected cost savings match your actual cost savings?
So I guess a number of different ways. Projected, they're very accurate in nature. The output of the OLAs seems to be very accurate and in real world scenarios. And the idea there is a lot of different options that you can utilize with, and then also many different tools, potentially even further. You can ensure them by making sure that you putting the effort and time into optimizing those workloads once they are migrated over into the cloud. And that's what we here at AWS are all about, right? The idea is that less each month than the tools available that we can bring to the table to help ensure that.
Glenn, so you're cutting a little bit in and out on my end. Justin, I don't know if you're experiencing the same thing.
Just a little bit. I saw that there was one more question around some common technical issues companies face while migrating.
I'm hearing Justin.
Can you hear me, Bill?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I would say one of the common technical issues that we see customers facing when migrating, particularly around Microsoft and Windows workloads, is the technical debt in older operating systems. Running applications that are dependent upon things like Server 2003, Server 2008, where it's very complicated to either refactor that application or just move it to a newer operating system. But fortunately, there are tools available. So that App2 container that I was talking about before is one way to get older applications moved onto newer types of systems or infrastructure. And then another one is there's a tool available where you can actually package up an application and not really emulate it, but sort of like an emulation, run it on a newer operating system that's actually still supported. So move it to something newer like a Server 2016 or 2019 without having to refactor the application and still be able to use it on AWS. So again, older systems, older operating systems that customers tend to continue to run and are up against the wall if they're looking to move it to the cloud. But there's plenty of tools available to help with that.
Great. Glenn, is there anything you wanted to add to that at all? All right. Glenn might be having some technical difficulties, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for everybody that asked their questions. Glenn, Justin, thank you for attending. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. So for next week, for our next tech break, it will be September 25th with partner Doxilent, and we'll be discussing how Doxilent has easily migrated and scaled their Windows-based file shift solution with Amazon FSx. So thank you so much for joining us. I know it was a little tough, but I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, I apologize for the technical difficulties.
No worries. It's happy Friday, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend.